What's going on, everyone? So I recently made a video diving into how box office, like literally, the Conjuring Last Rites has been, right? And I won't go too much into depth in that specifically because I made a whole video about it. But essentially, I do think part of the success is going into the fact that this is the last film and it's being marketed as such. The case that ended it all, right? And it's like, hey, last chance. Like everyone loves a good bye tour. Everyone loves a farewell tour. No one wants to get FOMO or anything like that. And it's like, hey, get your butts in seats, get your tickets if you ever want to see a Conjuring movie again, right? Like this is your chance. And I don't think, I mean, with how successful this has been, I would be pretty surprised if this is the last film. I think that they'll probably bring something out. They'll give it time to marinate so everyone thinks, and then it'll be like, haha, we're bringing it back by popular demand type thing. And it'll be kind of interesting to see. But just in general, it is great to see the success of this film because it adds excitement into the horror space. Right? As a horror fan, as a horror channel, we all kind of, I mean, this is good for the business of horror. Right, because it incentivizes and gets studios and stuff excited. And there's a lot of horror movies that have been coming out a lot down the pipeline, and the more successful that this is, the more successful or the more chance and opportunity there is for just better quality films, more budgets, all of those things, to where it just benefits us as the viewer and the audience. So I'm really excited and looking forward to that. But what I want to talk about, because this is in many ways a Scream channel. It's not just Scream channel. I talk all kinds of different films and stuff like that. But I do talk. I basically built the back of this channel on Scream. So time of recording this video, Conjuring is surpassed it, made 140 plus million, right? And I think this film is going, probably going to get close to 200, if not exceed 200 million, which would be great, right? Now, Scream, again, Scream channel, like, will this bode well for Scream? Could this potentially help Scream in particular and just other horror franchises, period? But again, I want to kind of focus on the Scream element. A lot of buzz, a lot of hype for Scream. Scream is one of the bigger kind of IPs. It is one of the more beloved franchises, but it is a lot more niche than the big box office type of Conjuring films, right? Budgets are very different, very small. The special effects, the scares, the CGI, all the stuff that goes into a Conjuring level film, you're not going to get with Scream. Scream is a lot more straightforward. It's a slasher genre. Like, everyone loves a good slasher. Everyone loves a good popcorn film. You throw them on, but it's much more niche than a more broad type of film. Now, me personally, I love slasher films. I love more of the realistic style films. There's a lot of people that believe in the paranormal and supernatural and demons and stuff like that. I just personally have never had any type of experience or anything that I even thought was an experience or anything like those lines. I am incredibly fascinated by it all. I love it all. I mean, this channel originally started as like me diving into various things. And, I've always talked about maybe one day I'll get back into that and kind of, maybe have like two versions of this channel. But, that's later on down the road. But I am very fascinated by it. I just personally have never had an experience where, somebody just going around with a knife. I mean, that's killing people. Humans are the scariest thing, right? And so films that I can put myself in and see actually happening to me are just much scarier or much more, like things like The Strangers. I've talked about this in the past. Like, my favorite line ever in a horror film is from The Strangers, when they're like, why are you doing this? And it's like, because you were home. It's just crazy. It's insanity. It doesn't need any explanation. Doesn't need anything, right? Like, so I love Scream. I love kind of the slasher genre and stuff, but it is very niche compared to, a Conjuring. So, for example, the Conjuring so far has made more money than Scream 5. Scream 5 grossed 138.9 million worldwide. Right? This Conjuring film has already made more than that. You look at Scream 6, however, that one earned 169.1 million. So that one was really good. That one had a lot of success, which is kind of funny because not been very critical of Scream 6. Haven't been a big fan of Scream 6, but the success is really good, right? And so we've seen this kind of uptick trend. again, something like The Conjuring, you're not going to get the budget, you're not going to get the things that are going to attract kind of the masses and audience. Plus, I also think, like, what would this film have done had it not been marketed as this is it? Hey, I'm not saying it wouldn't have had success and it would have been really good, but we've seen kind of horror recently in that like 150 to like 170, 75 range. Like I could see The Conjuring kind of being in that range and area potentially. Right? Like closer to maybe the 175, 200. Well, now this is probably, I mean, this could go down potentially as one of the highest grossing, not the highest grossing horror films ever. Right? So to me, I do think that is something that I don't know if Scream and some of these other horror franchises can replicate, but I do think that this is really good for the potential success of Scream and those other franchises. Right? You watch something though, like I Know What You Did Last Summer, and the failure box office wise that it had. It didn't have engrossed the amount that was anticipated in success, but also a lot of people, myself included, thought it wasn't a very good movie, right? Success sells. And The Conjuring Last Rite is going around as like, hey, this was a really good movie. Whether you loved it, whether you hate it, the consensus thought is that, hey, this is a really good movie, where the consensus thought for I Know What You Did Last Summer was like, hey, they really dropped the ball with this one. Right? And something I've talked about on numerous occasions, right? Like, word of mouth is the best generator. You can put as much marketing, you can put as much whatever, as much money backing, whatever, right? But you need the word of mouth buzz. You need people excited, talking, and hyping up the film, and you want a good quality film. If you're just kind of packing it in or half-assing it, right, like you're not going to have the success no matter how much you market, no matter how much money you put into it, because at the end of the day, can't cover up that it's a bad film. You're gonna have to show people that it's a bad film at some point, right? You're trying to make as much money as you can in the beginning, which, yes, that's usually where films make the most money, but you also need the longevity. You see drastic drop-offs on films, period, not just even in the horror space. But when you're talking about the horror space, you have such a limited pool compared to some of these other things, to where it might make things a lot more challenging, a lot more difficult. So to me, I'm glad that this is a good film. And I just think if you can make Scream 7, I was going to say Scream 6, if you can make Scream 7 a higher quality film, if you can actually make and do right by this, there's already talks and confirmation that, hey, we're getting a Scream 8, which is great, but you got to make sure you hit this one correctly, that this one has the success, that this one is a good film. You think of the classic Scream, which still to this day is the most beloved in the franchise. It's the best one in the franchise, by my opinion and most people's opinions. I don't think anything will ever, because I mean, it literally changed horror. It did so much for the horror space, but that didn't have social media. We didn't have X and Facebook and YouTubers and all these things that were promoting it and stuff. It did better a whole month into the theater. Right? Like, the longer it was in theaters, the better and better it did, because of the word of mouth. People going, man, you got to see this film. This film is incredible. And then, that it generates that buzz that, kind of trickles down, and then all of a sudden it has a success. So word of mouth and just, creating a quality product is what's going to have the success, which is going to yield the return that you want and are looking for. So hopefully that's the case. But I do think that this bodes really well, and The Conjuring and just kind of the buzz behind it and the success. I just think period is going to be really good for the horror space and the horror community, because I think it'll incentivize studios and stuff. But also, I do think it'll be good to kind of have this, but especially if we can get another movie or two in between, which there are going to be some, between now and Scream 7, where those have success and those kind of keep the hype train. I'm hoping we're having that hype train continue going into Scream 7, because I think that will just have more and more success. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel. What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.